Top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. International Boxing News posted a tweet that reads, Fight News. WBA regular champion Leigh Wood and Mauricio Lara are rumored to be closing in on a deal to face each other on February 4th at the Motor Point Arena in Nottingham. Ahead of such a fight, I think most people would favor Mauricio Lara to win. We know that they were supposed to fight earlier this year, but the fight got scrapped. The WBA ordered a fight between Leigh Wood and Leo Santa Cruz. The Santa Cruz people petitioned the WBA to allow them an exemption to the mandatory so they could unify titles with the other champion at this weight, Ray Vargas, by way of the WBC, but they didn't file their paperwork in a timely fashion, so as a result of that, the fight between Leo and Leigh Wood got reordered, but it appears that Leigh Wood is going in a different direction, and it's likely because of what I've been telling you guys. At a 75-25 split, Leigh Wood would make more money boxing Mauricio Lara, high-risk, low-reward opponent that he might be. He might make more money boxing that guy than he'd make boxing Leo Santa Cruz for the WBA title, the full title. And that's likely why they are foregoing that fight and not complying with that order, that recent order. So who does Leo Santa Cruz end up fighting if he's not going to fight Leigh Wood? If Leigh Wood is going in a different direction and taking on Mauricio Lara? Well, ranked at number 1 is Thomas Patrick Ward of Great Britain. Perhaps Leo Santa Cruz will share the ring with him. And perhaps as a result of this non-compliance, the WBA may so decide to strip Leigh Wood of his WBA regular title. That's one way they might resolve all of this. In any event, Leigh Wood is set to take on the very dangerous Mauricio Lara of Mexico. Fiscally, it doesn't make a lot of sense because there's a bigger fight that they can make. This is not an according to Hoyle Duck, you understand. And according to Hoyle Duck is when you circumvent a difficult fight for an easier fight. Mauricio Lara, that's not an easier fight. No, it's not. It's not an easy fight for Leigh Wood by any stretch of the imagination. And fiscally, it doesn't make more sense than making a Leigh Wood versus Mick Conlan rematch. A fight of the year candidate that took place earlier this year that ended in a dramatic knockout. He didn't just knock out Mick Conlan, he knocked him out the fucking ring. Mick Conlan is going to be in action this weekend in his native Belfast opposite the ring, Kareem Guerfrey. This will be his second fight since having been knocked out by Leigh Wood, and I'm sure that young Mick would love to run it back with Leigh, but Leigh has other plans. I mean, Leigh Wood's got options. He does. He's got that Mauricio Lara fight he can have. He's got a Mick Conlan rematch. Kiko Martinez, after stopping Zelfa Barrett, he expressed an interest in facing Leigh Wood. Irrespective of taking on Leo Santa Cruz in that WBA title consolidation match, Leigh Wood has other options he can explore, though the more fiscally, the financially bigger fight, the biggest fight that he can have is the Mick Conlan rematch. The Mick Conlan fight. That's the biggest one. That's bigger than a Lara fight, bigger than a Kiko Martinez fight, bigger even than a Leo Santa Cruz fight. The biggest bang for your buck fight that he can have is the Mick Conlan rematch. And I mean, if Mick Conlan wins this weekend, I don't see why they can't explore that fight for the first or second quarter of next year. I don't see why not. But that's not the story. The story is he may be facing his matchroom stablemate, Mauricio Lara. It's a very dangerous fight. They're both strong punchers, Mauricio Lara and Leigh Wood, but to the eye, Mauricio Lara really is the more destructive puncher, arguably the more durable fighter as well. Lest we forget, Leigh Wood was dropped in the early goings of the Mick Conlan fight, and Mick Conlan ain't a big puncher. His bread and butter is his boxing, not his brawling. If Mick Conlan can drop you, Mauricio Lara can stop you. That's the way that looks. That's the way that reads. In any event, this is what they're planning. This is what the story is. For all intents and purposes, Leigh Wood versus Mauricio Lara may be back on. In men's welterweight news, per a tweet from Michael Benson, Manny Pacquiao has declared that he is willing to come out of retirement at 44 years old to fight either Errol Spence Jr. or Terrence Crawford. I'm eager to fight them and test them. I'm still here. Even though I have been retired for more than a year, I work out almost every day. And let's get this out of the way. I don't want to see that shit. I want to see that fight. Manny's too old. Listen, Manny's a legend. He's great. All that stuff. I don't want to see that shit. I want to see that fight. Manny's too old. He's having an exhibition match this weekend in Seoul, South Korea. Senicio Estrada is going to be commentating. I believe Ryan Garcia is going to be commentating as well. I don't know if he's saying this as an effort to draw attention to his box office fight, his box office pay-per-view this weekend, because in spite of it being an exhibition match, it's also being billed as a pay-per-view, something akin to what we've been seeing from Floyd Mayweather the last 2 or 3 years.
Is Manny strapped for cash?
I don't know, he might be. He jumped into bed with Triller, of all people. They're staging this exhibition match on their platform.
I hope he got his money up front.
Sinicia and Ryan as well. Triller doesn't have the best reputation for paying people in a timely fashion. Yes, I as a consumer, I as a boxing fan, have no desire to see a 44-year-old Manny Pacquiao share the ring with either Errol Spence Jr. or Terence Crawford. Moreover, the name value of Manny Pacquiao has somewhat diminished over time, which isn't surprising. Look at the box office numbers for the Ugas fight.
Remember that initially Manny was supposed to be fighting Errol last year. Errol pulled out due to an eye injury. Ugas stood in his place.
And opposite the ring, Yordenis Ugas, Manny Pacquiao's name value was not enough to get the pay-per-view to crack so much as 300,000 buys. You think about that. You think about how the box office numbers for the fight were just a little over 200,000 buys. And you think about what Manny's asking price might be for a Crawford fight.
For a Spence fight.
Well, over a year ago, Bob Arum tried to make the fight between Terence and Manny happen, saying that Manny Pacquiao's asking price for the match was in the neighborhood of $40 million. And Bob Arum was unsuccessful in his attempts to get Manny that kind of money. What's his asking price for Terence going to be here today?
What's it going to be for Errol?
Errol's supposed to be fighting Keith Thurman at some point in the first quarter of next year, and he's got at least 2 mandatories waiting in the queue.
Montes Stanionis by way of the WBA and Jaron Boots Ennis by way of the IBF.
In fighting Keith Thurman, he would be satisfying his mandatory challenger by way of the WBC, since that fight has since been ordered. Is there even any time on Errol's very busy schedule for a retired Manny Pacquiao?
And if there is time, who really wants to see that fight? Who wants to pay for it? Manny was great in his heyday, but he no longer represents an elite level welterweight. It's almost unethical.
Almost unethical? It is unethical that the people at the PBC were unable to make a fight between 2 primed, unbeaten champions happen.
It's unethical that Montes Stanionis' career has been left in limbo. Jaron Ennis' career has been left in limbo with his.
If you guys get to working on a Pacquiao versus Spence fight, where does that leave them? When exactly can they expect to get their 2 title shots that they've been waiting for, that by all rights they should have gotten already?
Pacquiao versus Spence as a fight is quite unethical at this time, given how many responsibilities Errol has as a champion, how many mandatories are outstanding.
What do you think this is, a passing of the torch fight? Listen, Manny Pacquiao already fought Yordenis Ugas last year and lost.
Ugas didn't go on to become a mega celebrity after that, you understand. The numbers for Ugas versus Spence are in the same fucking neighborhood as the numbers for Ugas versus Pacquiao. Nothing to write home about.
Last month, I remember seeing a very interesting tweet from boxing insider Rick Glacier about those numbers. Rick Glacier stated that Spence versus Ugas' pay-per-view buys were just 129,000, which was 19,000 buys less than Crawford versus Porter, which was only available on ESPN Plus app pay-per-view, not cable pay-per-view. Spence's pay-per-view buys have been plummeting for years. Spence has no personality, and unexciting fighting style makes for poor pay-per-view buys.
So whether you go with Rick Glacier's numbers, or you go with the initially reported 200,000, little over 200,000, the pay-per-view reportedly did. Neither one of those numbers are great numbers.
Manny Pacquiao's 44 years old, likely wants a lot of fucking money to come out of retirement, and based on Errol Spence Jr.'s current metrics, can they actually afford to finance a fight between him and Manny Pacquiao?
Manny Pacquiao's name value clearly isn't what it used to be. I reiterate, look at the numbers for the Ugas fight.
Terence is a network and promotional free agent, so to fight Manny Pacquiao, who would bankroll it? Black Prime?
Hey, listen, I'm a big fucking Terence Crawford fan. One of the biggest. But Black Prime is set to take a bath this weekend on this pay-per-view. This David Avanesian fight.
Yeah, on this weekend's fight, I don't know that Black Prime are going to keep doing business with Terence Crawford, given the hefty price tag that he comes with. He's set to make a reported $10 million for this thing.
So listen, Manny's too fucking old. He don't need to be coming out of retirement. He don't need to be fighting Crawford. He don't need to be fighting Spence.
Stay retired. In men's light heavyweight news, Anthony Yarde says, stylistically, me against Beterbiev is a blockbuster fight. Someone is getting knocked out, and I do agree with that assertion, that assessment. This fight is almost guaranteed to end in a knockout, whether Artur knocks out Anthony or Anthony knocks out Artur. The confident contender from England will challenge an undefeated knockout artist for 375-pound championships this time around. Artur Beterbiev is beyond dangerous, yet Yarde feels more properly prepared than he did before another Russian champion, Sergey Kovalev, knocked him out in the 11th round of their fight for Kovalev's WBO light heavyweight title in August of 2019 at Traktor Ice Arena in Chelyabinsk, Russia. I'm a lot calmer as a fighter, Yarde told BT Sport in an interview that was posted to the network's YouTube channel Saturday night. I'm a lot more confident. I'm a lot more mentally and physically sound. I've been at this level for a while and I'm ready. Stylistically, me against Beterbiev is a blockbuster fight. Someone's getting knocked out.
It's been about 3 years since the Kovalev fight.
Hard to say that Anthony Yarde has gotten better since then. He's dropped a decision to Lyndon Arthur. He avenged the loss in the second fight. He knocked Lyndon Arthur out.
But Lyndon Arthur wasn't a proven world-class guy. He was more of a domestic-level guy at the time.
Why would I not be happy and confident to be in this position, Yarde asked. We're two men with two good knockout ratios. Two men that can punch. He's been dropped before. He's been in deep waters before. He's human. The belt, the legacy, the history. That's what I'm in the game for.
The 31-year-old Yarde is the mandatory challenger for the WBO belt Beterbiev won when he defeated Long Island's Joe Smith Jr. by second-round technical knockout in their 175-pound title unification fight June 18th.
I think Anthony's fight with Artur is going to go a little longer than Joe's fight with Artur because stylistically they are different fighters. Anthony's a more defensively responsible guy than Joe, even if Joe is more proven at world level.
Joe's more of a pressure fighter, whereas Anthony, he's a boxer-puncher, more specifically, a counter-puncher.
He's got that working for him, and he's got power of his own. Perhaps he's not as big a puncher as Artur, but this ain't the kind of guy you want to let get through. You don't want this kid to chin you.
Beterbiev and Yarde were initially supposed to square off this year in October. Their championship bout was postponed for 3 months because Beterbiev underwent minor surgery on his right knee in the immediate aftermath of his victory over Smith.
Signs of aging, signs of gradual decline and wear and tear, always a cause for concern whenever we broach the subject of Artur Beterbiev, who definitely is the most devastating puncher at this weight, but he's also getting older.
And he still is likely the favorite with the bookies and the Gentiles, the boxing community at large. Most people, in spite of Artur's age and the surgery,
they're still picking Artur to splatter this guy. They're still picking Artur to run him over on the premise that he couldn't deal with a past-it Sergey Kovalev 3 years ago. 3 years later, Artur, he's a more consummate professional than Sergey was. He ain't got an alcohol problem.
3 years later, what changed about Anthony? Did the quality of competition get better?
No, it didn't. Did you see the last guy that he fought?
Irrespective of who wins, Callum Smith is eyeing that fighter for a fight later on next year.
Eddie Hearn wants to stage Artur Beterbiev versus Callum Smith at the 53,000 capacity Anfield Stadium.
Eddie's anticipating that Artur is going to win.
A lot of people are. Promoter Eddie Hearn told Boxing Social today that he wants to stage a fight between the former world super middleweight champion Liverpool's Callum Smith and unified light heavyweight champion Artur Beterbiev at the 53,000 capacity Anfield Stadium in Smith's hometown in the summer of 2023. Mundo Smith is the WBC's mandatory challenger at 175 pounds and is guaranteed the winner of Artur Beterbiev versus Anthony Yarde, which takes place January 28th at Wembley, with no exceptions. Promoter Bob Arum has also confirmed that the plan is for Beterbiev to face Smith after Yarde and not look for an immediate unification, an immediate undisputed title fight with the only other champion at this weight, matchroom fighter, Dmitry Bivol.
Why the fuck not?
Eddie Hearn said, I'd love to do that. Artur Beterbiev versus Callum Smith at Anfield in the summer. I think that would be incredible. Beterbiev is with Bob Arum's top rank, so a fight between the pair will not be easy to stage at Anfield, although Beterbiev is coming to the UK for Yarde. Arum and Top Rank are more cooperative with Frank Warren's Queensbury than Hearn and Matchroom, which makes it easier for them to secure home field advantage for Yarde.
Why would Bob be more receptive to a Callum Smith fight than a Dmitry Bivol fight when both fighters are with Matchroom?
I'll tell you why. Two Russian fighters, two Russian champions, even two really good ones like Artur and Dmitry. That's only going to draw so big a crowd, but in the United Kingdom, Beterbiev versus Smith. you can sell that.
Bob Arum may have the same vision that Eddie Hearn has when it comes to a Beterbiev versus Smith fight on the premise that Frank Warren promotes the show.
And not Eddie Hearn. Try and understand that Callum Smith is the mandatory challenger to the green belt. If Callum and the winner of Yarde versus Beterbiev are unable to reach a deal, it goes to a purse bid. And when it does,
maybe what Bob is thinking is he can join forces with Frank to beat out Eddie, like he did earlier this year when it came to the Fury versus White purse bid.
That surprised a lot of people, and that might be what Bob Arum might have in mind. Beterbiev versus Smith in Liverpool, so long as Frank Warren helms the promotion. Frank Warren does the show.
Getting ahead of ourselves.
Before that, Smith will have to fight on March 11 at the M&S Bank Arena in Liverpool to stay active before facing the Beterbiev versus Yarde winner. Hearn stated that he would love to make a fight between Mundo and Manchester's Lyndon Arthur, and that several offers had now been made to Wasserman, Arthur's promoters, for that fight.
Two Russian fighters in the United States ain't really gonna draw. It's just the truth.
Two Russian fighters in the United Kingdom might not draw that much either, but a homegrown guy like a Callum Smith, oh, you can sell that.
Callum Smith versus Artur Beterbiev, or Callum Smith versus Anthony Yarde. If he wins, if he pulls the upset, hell, that might be an even bigger fight than a Beterbiev fight.
And that's what I think Bob Arum is thinking. That's why he seems receptive to the Smith fight and not receptive to the Bivol fight.
How else can you reconcile it? How else can you explain it? How else can you make it make sense when he essentially has to work with the same promotional outfit, but he's receptive to one of their fighters and not the other?
Callum Smith also told IFL TV last week that he is open to considering an offer to fight unbeaten domestic rival Joshua Buatsi next. I want to fight before the Beterbiev versus Yarde winner. If his team wants to make me an offer, it's an offer I'll consider. I haven't had any offers. I want to fight in March and then roll into the world title.
Does this mean that Bob Arum is protecting Artur Beterbiev from Dmitry Bivol?
Well, I'm sure that Artur Beterbiev and Mark Ramsey, who trains him, I'm sure they'd be at odds with that contention, but it's definitely what it sounds like. Smith is more beatable than Bivol.
He's not just more marketable than Dmitry, he's more beatable than Dmitry.
Sorry to say, it sounds a lot like, once again, Bob Arum doesn't want Dmitry Bivol going anywhere near none of his guys.